you. We are now live. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Act Subcommittee. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the Council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, the meeting will be adjourned so that access can be restored. If the issue cannot be resolved, the Chairman will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, the Chairman will adjourn for a short period to try to re-establish their connection. As members are called to speak, the Chairman will remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the Democratic Officer will advise you. The vote will be taken by roll call and the result announced by myself, Helen Snell, Democratic Services Officer. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on the application in order to be able to vote. We have public representation at the meeting today and they have joined by telephone. Where a member has declared a non-registrable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the committee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using the raise your hand function. Before we start today's business, I will ask committee members to confirm they are present and state their electoral division. Members, I will now call your name. Please confirm your name and your electoral division. Councillor Lennox Boyd.
Good morning, I'm Sheila Lennox Boyd and I'm a Cornwall councillor for Saltash North. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Luke.
Councillor Matt Luke. I'm a county councillor member for Penwithwick and Boscopper.
Thank you. And Councillor Martin.
Good morning, my name is John Martin. I'm a divisional council, Cornwall council member for Helston South.
Thank you. I can confirm the following officers are also present. Mark Andrews. Could you please confirm your name and your role, please, Mark?
Yes, good morning. Mark Andrews. I'm a senior solicitor at Cornwall Council. I'm advising the committee this morning.
Thank you. And Claire James.
Good morning. Claire James, licensing officer, presenting the report today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Julie Flower.
Good morning. Yeah, my name is Julie Flower and I'm a senior licensing officer at Cornwall Council.
Thank you. If we can now move to our agenda for today, please, and look at item number 1, election of chairman for the meeting. Can I call for nominations for chairman, please?
Good morning. I'd like to nominate Councillor Luke as chairman for the meeting today.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, it's Councillor Lennox Boyd. I'd like to second Councillor Luke. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox Boyd. If I just do a roll call then, this is nominating Councillor Luke as chairman. So Councillor Lennox Boyd?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Luke?
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Martin?
4.
Thank you. That's carried. So if I can hand over to you now, please, Chairman, Councillor Matt Luke. Thank you.
Hello and good morning to everyone. I shall hand straight back over to Claire James, the licensing officer, to put out what we are holding the meeting for this morning, and also Helen will give some details as well. So I'll pass straight over to Helen first and then Claire as well. Good morning to everybody else.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just refer you to items 2 and 3 of the agenda to go through prior to considering the application? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So before we hand over to everyone, if the other people on the phone line could introduce themselves and tell me their roles as well, and I can just jot that down, please. And if we start with the number 2 ending with 2300.
Yeah, my name is Alex Riley, and I'm the Executive Chairman and Co-founder of Loungers, the applicant.
Okay, so applicant. Problem is, I'm only getting telephone numbers, and it's difficult then. And then if we could have the number ending with 3936, please.
Yes, it's Robert Botkai. I'm the solicitor representing the applicant today.
What was it, Robert? Sorry, what was your?
Botkai, B-O-T-K-A-I.
Okay, solicitor. And if we could have the number ending with 4188, please.
Julianne Wallace-Jones. I represent obviously myself, my husband, and Mr. and Mrs. Clegg from Custom House Passage, and Mr. and Mrs. Bailey from Key House Meeton Pier.
You're representing all the residents in the local area?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody else has introduced themselves, I think, that we've got on the meeting, Helen, is that correct?
I think there's Andrew Sanders as well, but he's observing.
Right.
And as far as you can observe on the telephone.
Okay.
And Tom Trenchard, property
director
now, and just. Yeah.
Okay. Right, got that down. Okay, if we can carry on now then, Helen, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you've got 6 people dialing in.
Right.
If you'd now like to move, Chairman, to the agenda item 2.
2, yes.
Thank you.
Right, so this morning you've listened, you've heard who we've got. John, myself, Matt, and Sheila, who are overlooking the thing, and Mark, who's our solicitor as well. And I shall now hand over to Claire James, who's going to introduce the licence we're looking at today.
Chairman, it's Mark Andrews from Legal. Sorry, it's Mark Andrews from Legal. Yeah, I think what I asked Helen to just take members through the other things, but I'll do it.
Okay.
So can we, in item 2 on the agenda, are there any declarations? Sorry, are there any apologies for absence, please? Are there any apologies for absence? No. Okay, thank you. And are there any declarations of interest?
None.
No.
None.
Okay, that's lovely. Okay, then we can move on to the application then, please. So thank you, Chair. If we could pass over to Claire James to introduce the application. Thanks.
My agenda is slightly different. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, for members' information, as it may be referred to in submissions from other persons, a pavement licence has recently been approved for this premises under the Business and Planning Act 2020, which makes some temporary changes to licensing so that premises can comply with COVID-19 secure guidelines to protect staff and customers whilst social distancing measures remain in place. This legislation will be in place until the end of September 2020. It does not form any part of this application and has already been determined and is not relevant to the hearing today. I will now give details of the Licensing Act 2003 grant application. So an application has been received from Loungers UK Limited for the grant of a premises licence at Trethau Lounge, Wharf Road, St Ives. The premises is currently named as Pizza Express on the Property Gazetteer. The application before us today is for the daily opening hours, Mondays to Sundays from 10 AM until 00:30 hours. The application is for the on and off sales of alcohol from 10 AM till midnight. The application is also to authorise the provision of late night refreshment between 11 PM at night and 00:30 hours, both indoors and outdoors. Non-standard timings of the application are that the premises may remain open for the sale of alcohol and the provision of late night refreshment from the terminal hour for those activities on New Year's Eve through to the commencement time for those activities on New Year's Day. The application and premises plan can be found at Appendix 1 and 2 of the report, and a location plan is attached at Appendix 3. During the consultation period, representations were received from 6 other persons who considered that the granting of the premises licence could undermine the licensing objectives, and in particular the prevention of public nuisance. These representations are found at Appendix 4 of the report. The licensing officer received an email from the applicant's representative responding to those representations. This is found in the report at Appendix 5. A supplementary agenda was published this Monday following additional supporting information having been received from Mrs. Wallace-Jones, the other person, and the applicant's solicitor. To sum up, the panel must consider whether the steps proposed by the applicants in the operating schedule are adequate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. If so, you must grant the application. Alternatively, you may impose additional conditions that you consider necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives. If additional conditions would not make the operating schedule adequate and it is necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives, part or all of, the application may be refused. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, members, are there any questions you wish to ask? Claire?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right, I'll lead on to 7 of the agenda. Okay, Helen, are there any other people that are wishing to join the meeting, or is that it for now?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not aware of anybody else, but I will ask Claire to confirm as the licensing officer who coordinated the attendees. Claire, have you got anybody else?
No, as far as I'm aware, I was giving you information who was going to be attending the meeting, and from what those who introduced themselves earlier, it seems that we have all in attendance. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll proceed on to number 8 then. For the applicant to give their view of the licence today. I don't know if Alex are you doing it, or are you handing over to your solicitor to give your
It's
statement?
me, it's Robert Bockai, and Alex will be happy to cover anything that I don't, and if you have any questions following my address.
Okay, well, if you'd like to proceed with your address then please, and we have been given all the documentation for today's meeting and so forth. So if we could keep it to, you know, the bare minimum if we can, please, that would be very helpful.
I'll do that. Thank you, and good morning. And can I first say that I'm very sorry to miss a lovely trip to Cornwall this morning, and it's all very, very sad. But here we are at home dealing with applications on the telephone. So good morning to everybody. Just to introduce Loungers, the applicants, to you first of all. Loungers was formed in 2002. They've grown to 170 venues around England, around the country. They have two concepts, one of which is lounges and the other is cozy club. There are 30 cozy clubs around the country. They tend to be in city centres, and they're more formal bar restaurants, and lounges, which we are dealing with today, is a neighbourhood cafe bar combining the features of restaurant, cafe, pubs, much more informal, child-friendly, and really all about hospitality and familiarity. Alex Riley is in the meeting. Alex is a founder of Loungers. He's been there from the start and is now executive chairman in a very hands-on role. Tom Trenchard is also here. He's the property director. So should there be any questions about the property, but I doubt that will be required today. And then just for information, Andrew Sanders is a senior licensing assistant in my team, and he attends the meetings in case I fall off my chair. There are already lounges in Cornwall. There's in Truro, Falmouth, Newquay, and in Plymouth. The venues are sadly closed at the moment due to COVID, and Lounges is one of the few operators at the moment expanding in what is obviously an extremely challenging time for anyone involved in this sector. In terms of St Ives, in terms of these premises, as Claire has indicated in your papers will show, this is formerly the Pizza Express. It was already licensed for the sale of alcohol from 11 in the morning until 12 midnight, and for late night refreshment from 11 p.m. until 12:30. So those hours are not being extended. One of the weaknesses of the Licensing Act is that when you acquire licensed premises, you can't actually apply for a variation of the license until you have actually completed and taken over the premises. So it's perfectly standard practice that where you have a period between exchange and completion, the new operator will only be able to apply for a new license rather than a variation. So in many respects, this application is effectively a variation of the Pizza Express license, as opposed to a new license, but technically it is a new license application. I hope that that's understood. So broadly, the terms of the license are similar to the Pizza Express, save that we've put a 10 a.m. start time for the sale of alcohol, and I don't believe that that is contentious. The operating schedule reflects the cafe bar style operation that we will be operating. You have a copy of the menu, or the proposed menu, so you can see that there's substantial food that is going to be the mainstay of this operation. And you've also seen some photographs, and I hope that that conveys the sort of atmosphere that we will be embracing at the venue. The external area is very small. It's correct that Pizza Express didn't use that area. This came about following a telephone conversation with the police. We did consult with your police licensing officers prior to submitting the application, and Bob Henderson, in conversation with me, did indicate that there was a small area that could perhaps be used as outdoor tables and chairs. There is no police objection, so they saw the operating schedule. We fully consulted with them before the application. The police are your experts on crime and disorder, and they are not objecting. The application has also been served as is required on the Environmental Health Officer, trading standards, planning, the licensing authority, and the fire authority, and finally public health. And none of those experts, none of those responsible authorities have any representations in respect of this application. So no representations from any responsible authorities today. Now, in parallel, we were dealing with the pavement license, and I'm grateful to Julie Flowers, who has been dealing with that. There was some negotiation there, and the upshot is that we have to have 2 meters from the existing bollards that outside the premises to the barrier for tables and chairs. So there's probably an area of about 2.5 meters that we can use, a very small area that we can use for tables and chairs outside this area. And as you can see, the license is limited. The additional conditions that we proposed, having seen the representations, we said that we've agreed that all outside tables and chairs will be rendered unusable after 11 o'clock each day, and that all tables and chairs will be removed from the outside area during such times as the premises are not open. I hope that deals with the main thrust of the objections that have been set out by Mrs. Wallace-Jones, and very similar, if not identical, objections raised by the other interested parties. Looking at those representations in a little bit more detail, most of what's in there is really, and I say this respectfully, these are an attempt to rerun the patent license application, and that's not relevant to today's proceedings. And it's also important that we don't stray into the realms of planning. So anything that may have been included in the planning application in the past is not relevant to today's proceedings. So the payment license is dealt with properly and in accordance with the regulations by your own licensing officer, and we had discussions through your licensing officer with the highways officer as well. And so I don't intend to say very much more about that, because it's the actual pavement license and the authority to use the tables and chairs in the specific area has already been granted, and as Claire has said, that license will be valid until September 2021, when obviously we will all have to review how we use outdoor space, whether it's by pavement license or other regime. Why do we want the outside license? And from the representations, what remains relevant today is whether we can sell alcohol to our customers who are sitting at the tables and chairs outside. And we say that is an important part of what we do. There is a greater expectation now from customers to be able to use outdoor space, and that's not going to come to a screeching halt when we come out of the COVID restrictions. People already valued the opportunity to sit and eat and drink safely in an outdoor space, and they will do even more so when we come out of the restrictions. So it is a really important part of what we do. It is very controlled in that it's only the sale of alcohol would only be to the people who are sitting at the tables and chairs. A matter is raised that there was a fire at a nearby premises, I think in December. Well, the fire authority is a responsible authority, and they would have made representation if they had any concerns about this application. I'm just looking to see whether there's anything else that I need to go from the representation. It's very difficult to actually then pull out anything from it. We've got a lot of papers and a lot of comments. And again, I don't mean this in any way disrespectfully, and I understand that the licensing process can be confusing, but the other items raised by the interested parties are not actually strictly relevant to the application that is before the committee. So it may be better at this stage if Alex may have some additional points to add, or if you have questions of Alex, or perhaps it's better if we hear from the objector, Mrs. Wallace-Jones, and perhaps if we can then come back and then address any points that you, the committee, and the officers consider are relevant to this application.
Yeah. Okay. If we leave it at that point there just for the moment. Helen, you had your hand up. Did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just in the last minute, while the applicant's representative has been speaking, we have had a licensing enforcement officer join our meeting. So for transparency, Nicola Keane, are you on the line? Could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, yes, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Nicola Keane. I work for Cornwall Council as a licensing compliance officer in the West.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Morning, Nicola. I see Mark's got his hand up as well. Mark, did you want to come in a moment?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just if Mr. Book, I could just clarify just a couple of points. Yeah, Mr. Buckard, the issues appear to be, or the main issues really appear to be in relation to the outside area, which you did touch upon, so thank you for that. But if you could just explain, because you've obviously, I would say, you might disagree, but I would say it's slightly unusual to include an area in your licensed premises plan that's not part of your premises, if that makes sense. So if you could just perhaps just give a bit more information about that. I think you kind of touched on it in that you said it's going to be included in the pavement license and you just want to sort of keep it in the future. And then the only other point, if you could, is the conditions which are on the pavement license about the furniture being removed. Are you saying that you're agreeable to those conditions being attached as conditions of the license if granted? So just two questions there. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. There are two ways of dealing with the outside area. Very much as a pub will have a garden area. So you can either say, well, that's an off sale, so you don't license the area and you just treat it as off sales, which is then difficult to regulate the use of that area. Very often we find that officers prefer to have the red line around the outside area, and which makes it easier to condition the use of that area. Now, obviously, if we don't have the authority to use the area, which could be the case following September 2021, then we wouldn't be able to sell alcohol or allow our customers to consume that unless we dealt with this as an off sale. So it's a bit confusing. You can do it either way. It doesn't make a huge difference. And as to the conditions, we've offered the conditions, similar conditions. I don't think they need to be repeated from the pavement license. We've said that all outside tables and chairs be rendered unusable after 11 o'clock, and that they'll be unusable when not open. I'm just trying to pull out the actual license.
No, that's fine. I've got that word. I've got that word in, Mr. Buckard.
I think it's better if we go with the conditions that I've proposed, because on the pavement license there are actually two sets of conditions. There's the specific ones and then there's the generic conditions. So I think it gets a bit confusing if we start to try and duplicate. So the pavement license is what it is. It controls the use of the outside space. The conditions that I've proposed, the two conditions that deal with the license, the premises license.
Okay, if we leave it at that for the moment. Members, did you want to ask any questions before we move on to Alex Riley? Yes, John.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm just looking at the supplementary agenda, page 7, which shows the map of the premises ground floor, including the extension onto the pavement. And I'm just asking the bollards that are identified there, are they the bollards that identify the edge of the loading bay area, or are they separate bollards that you will be imposing within that space?
Right, yes.
Yeah, the existing bollards remain. Tom will be able to tell me if I'm wrong. The existing bollards will remain, and we have to have 2 meters gap between those bollards and the start of our tables and chairs area. There will be a form of barrier around our tables and chairs, and there is 2 meters between that area and the bollards, and then you have the pavement outside of the bollards.
Okay.
It's difficult to explain on the telephone, but I hope that's clear.
Yeah, and how are you planning to mark the area of business at the outside?
There will be a form of barrier, probably a soft barrier, rather than the original intention is to have rather nice heavy planters, but they obviously can't be removed so easily. So it's going to be a form of, I think is there a cafe nearby that's got something similar? Again, Tom will be able to explain. It's a softer form of barrier. Tom, are you able to give some help on this?
Yeah, it'd be a thin, probably more like canvas type barrier with the lounge's branding on it, just to demarcate the area, and so it would contain the tables and chairs, and would extend to roughly 2.5 metres from our front fascia, leaving 2 metres between our tables and chairs and the bollards to allow pedestrians to pass through comfortably.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, John?
It's just that I was just concerned that pedestrians will not need to walk into the loading bay area to avoid the customer area. Thank you very much.
Okay.
There'll be the 2 metre gap between the bollards and the tables and chairs to allow pedestrian flow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sheila?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Bockeye. Just a couple of things. You mentioned, sorry, you can hear me, can't you? You mentioned that you had to go for a new licence. Could you not have just transferred the existing licence from the Pizza Express? Or is this due to you going for like the extension of outside use?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. We can't transfer, this is the problem with the Licensing Act, one of the problems. We can't transfer a licence until we completed the purchase. So that would have then left us having to apply for a variation and potentially having a 2 or 3 month gap between the acquiring the premises and being able to trade. And so that's why between exchange and completion, we can't transfer the license, and if you're not the holder of the license, you can't apply for a variation. So the only option for us was to apply for a new license, and that's perfectly standard process. It is a gap in the Licensing Act, I'm afraid, but yeah, transferring the license wouldn't have, because we needed to apply for a variation anyway. That wouldn't have worked for us.
Okay, thank you. And also on page 21, you've got a designated area for external trading on the license plan to be restricted to alcohol consumed just at tables, chairs. And it does say that you're going to have wait service will be available at all time. Is this how you police that people do not sort of go from your premises and maybe amble away with a drink? Will this be the way that you will control this area?
Yes, we'll have waiters and waitresses on hand, and our patrons will be required to consume at the tables and chairs, and they would not be wandering off.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, that's fine. Mark, did you have any questions before we proceed?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay, thanks then. If Alex, Ripley, it's Riley, isn't it? Alex, would you like to present your proposal for the moment now then, please?
Thank you. I mean, I don't really have anything to add. I think obviously our solicitors covered the main points. I mean, I'm very happy to answer any questions the committee may have with regards to how we operate operationally. Obviously, as we've already alluded to, we currently have 3 sites in Cornwall, so already sort of employ over 100 people in the county. And in addition to my exec chair role with Loungers, I'm actually the non-exec chairman of a business called Hubbox Limited, which is Cornish based and operates Hub just obviously down the road from this particular site. So I know the town very well. I mean, I had a second home there until early part of last year for 8 years, and think we would fit extremely well into the town, and obviously we would like to think an asset and obviously help boost the local economy. And so it's really, I'm on the call really to answer any specific questions that anyone might have around how we operate. And what benefits we see to ourselves being granted this license and obviously being allowed to operate in St Ives.
Okay, thank you very much. I have got some questions from, we'll go ladies first this time. Sheila.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. I just see in your application that you don't intend any live music or recorded music.
That's correct.
There's no application for live music. Sorry, Alex.
It's not something we've applied for. It's not something that we generally do. So that obviously we haven't applied for it.
You haven't applied for any music. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is okay, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, is there a clear business case for the increase of tables and chairs outside?
I think, obviously external space is always a very nice to have in any application, and I think specifically with regards to this particular site, I was always surprised that Pizza Express didn't have any external seating, albeit it'd be very modest. There's clearly sufficient area there for some tables and chairs, and obviously I understood then when we were looking at the site that they'd obviously applied and had a payment license refused. But I think, specifically in regards to not just what we're dealing with currently in relation to COVID, but I think we're going to see a material shift in the way that people behave, and there'll be more of a demand for outside space, because I think people are wary about being in too close a contact with people inside, and I think we would see that perhaps as a sort of a permanent behavioural shift in the way that consumers behave. So we would see this as being quite important, and I think it improves the general frontage and appearance of the building as well. It would help demonstrate there's activity and life in the building, and like I said, my view would be, I'm no expert, but you look at it and think there is sufficient width in terms of the pavement there, given that how wide the pavement is as you go further around the wharf towards towards the lifeboat side end of the wharf. The pavement there is obviously not particularly wide, and there's clearly a very wide pavement at this particular point.
Okay, thank you. Mark, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for clarity, please, if Mr. Botkay or the applicant could just clarify, just for clarification, how many tables and chairs are we talking about you're proposing to put out the front, please?
Tom, have you got that to hand?
Yeah, I mean, we're only estimating at this stage, but given that the small area we're talking about, I mean, it's going to be we are literally talking about 4 to 6 small tables, really.
Sorry, 4 to 6, yeah? 4 to 6, yeah.
Okay, that was a question I was going to ask Mark, but there we are. You put me to the post. Okay then, is there any more questions that we wish to ask the applicant? Sheila, got last question there.
Thank you, Chair. What is the actual capacity of the building? How many people, fire regulations, etc.? How many tables and chairs are internal? Because you have upstairs as well, accommodation, am I correct?
Yes, that's right. Tom, do you have a capacity figure?
Just checking that.
It's Alex here. Whilst Tom checks that, I mean, obviously a lot of that will depend on what kind of relaxation of social distancing measures we find we're dealing with come the spring and summer, because clearly I think social distancing is probably something that will be around for some time. I think from memory, Tom, our internal trading area on a per square metre basis is about 180 square metres, something like that.
Yeah.
Which ordinarily, I mean, our seating tends to be a mix of sort of classic dining chair seating, so tables and chairs, and then there also tends to be some soft seating, so sofas and club chairs and areas where sort of families can come in and have a coffee and a lighter bite. But at the moment we're very much in an environment where we have been trying to max our dining capacity, so because of social distancing. But I would imagine that 180 square metres of trade would give us about circa 110 covers in total.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We'll move on then. Have we got any representations from the responsible authorities at this point? I didn't know if Nicola wanted to come in there or...
Sorry, it's Mark from Legal. No, we don't, Chairman. Yeah. Nicola's here for the next item.
Okay, fine then.
So we're on to the other persons.
Okay, right then. As to the other persons, I think it would be, is it Julie Wallace? If you want
it's Julianne.
Oh, Juliet, sorry. If you would like to put forward your case at this point in time, then please.
Yes, thank you. Firstly, I've been given some new information this morning, for which I'm very grateful, and that is in particular in relation to the use of the proposed use of the outside area after 11 o'clock. Now, from what's just been said, the table and chairs will all be removed, and there'll be no outside drinking in, from lounges, which does reduce the degree of complaint and concerns in relation to disturbance to local residents, and for that, for which I'm grateful. However, from the beginning, we welcome lounges to St. Ives. It's a fantastic company, it's got a great reputation, and the building that they're occupying is fit for purpose. So myself and the people I represent have no objections to its use inside the premises, as the building is fit for purpose and there shouldn't be any issues. I've also been liaising from the beginning of their application with their property director, Tom Trenchard, and their regional manager, Christina Hurst, in relation to concerns that we had for noise from the premises serving later in Custom House Passage. The staff have used it in the past as a sort of break area, and it's been agreed that from 9 o'clock onwards that these staff breaks will take place on the front. Also, Tom Trenchard has agreed to fit CCTV at their rear entrance to help control noise and disturbance of customers leaving the premises, you know, up to closing time and thereafter. And again, for that, I'm grateful. However, it's the strategic issue of the use of the pavement area which caused me great concern. Now, everybody's gone to great lengths to reinforce the fact that the pavement license has been issued, and I did make representations and objections to this license, which a process which happens very quickly. There's only 7 days for public consultation, and I'm also informed that there is no right of appeal. So, in relation to public safety issues, I make no apology by making representations now to the licensing committee to say that this is a retrograde step for the wharf as a whole, as this is a primary arterial route through St. Ives, and in the season and most weekends, it is actually bonkers down at the front of the wharf, with members of the public walking in the pavements and whatever, and every inch of that wharf is valuable space to the whole community. Now, under the Licensing Act, under the Cornwall licensing policy, sections 12.9 to 12.13, you have to take into consideration existing businesses and the safety of the public. Now, everybody uses that outside space. We developed a property, we own a cottage in Custom House Passage, and we had to replace the roof. We had to, you can't get a skip on the front in St. Ives. So everything has to be handball carried out, brought in each day and then taken out at the end of the business. And that space was utilised almost every day for 12 months by ourselves. Now, the recent fire in St. December has created a massive strategic issue for the reinstatement of what used to be the Albers licence. It's opposite the lifeboat station. This area is key with its loading area, and it's the only negotiable space in that stretch of wall. Now, I'm aware that Highways have approved, or they only made minor conditions to the pavement licence, and it's a very brave highway officer which chooses to ignore the refusal of the same area was applied for by Pizza Express in 2014. Now it was refused on a public safety issue. Now the publication, I don't intend to read out their judgment again, but it basically says that by having table and chairs on the front of a building, which is already huge, it's one of the largest on the front of St. Ives, it will push pedestrians into the road. Now, with COVID restrictions, people don't have to wear masks outside, but they have to and are advised to keep a 2-metre distance. At the moment, we have 4 metres at the front of lounges, and the licensing authority have effectively given away half of that for the price of £100 license.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
Mark.
Hang on a minute. Can we let her finish, please, before anybody else comes in?
Well, I'm just hoping that Mark will assist her that this is not a rerun of the pavement licence application.
I will take questions at the end.
Hang on,
Please let me finish.
Please stop. We'll have no arguments.
Chairman, it's Mark. Do you want me to comment? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would just like to say to the lady, yeah, this list is correct. It's not a rerun, but to be fair, you were she was referring to public safety, which is one of the licensing objectives. So I do take your point, but the reason I didn't interject, you're correct that this isn't a rerun of that, and referring to a decision from 2014 isn't really relevant to the application. But the point that you're making, and I don't want to make the point for you, but the point that you appear to me to be making is in relation to public safety. So therefore, that's why I haven't interjected. But this isn't a rerun of either the pavement application or anything else to do with that outside area in respect of the pavement licence. The pavement licence has been granted, and that is what it is. Whether people agree with that or not, that decision has been made. What we're here to do today is to determine an application for the grant of a premises licence, but it does include an outside area. So if you could keep your representations, please, to that outside area and to public safety, which, to be fair, you were doing in my view. So I think if the lady could continue, Chairman, but bear that in mind, please, as I'm sure you will. Thank you.
Yes, Judy, would you like to continue? And can we have no more interruptions until she's finished, please?
Thank you. In relation to public safety, which is very relevant at the moment in relation to COVID restrictions, the public, especially in relation to sitting outside eating, they're not required to wear masks, and the space that that will be available for pedestrian access alongside is only 2 metres wide. It makes no sense to put the public at risk by seating them outside in an area where people aren't required to wear masks, to both passers-by and the guests of the restaurant. It also affects disabled access. Under the licensing policy, you have to consider the use of the wharf by disabled people. Now, the other side of the pavement is a very high curve. It has a lot of bins, benches, etc. And the other side, outside Pizza Express, is all tarmac. I have a sister-in-law who regularly comes to St. Ives, and she and other wheelchair users enjoy this space and can do so unobstructed. But by moving them out into the path of other people, and even worse, into the road, is an unnecessary risk. I also see that the use of the outside space is unnecessary, as we are dealing with a huge building of a successful company. It's doing extremely well, and I congratulate loungers on that. But it shouldn't be, this outside space shouldn't be used for table and chairs and service when there is so much space inside. I don't
Sorry, Chairman, it's Mark Andrews. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, it's Mark Andrews. Yeah. Again, Chairman, it's up to the applicant what they apply for. It's not really relevant unless what they intend to do with their business is not really relevant to the licensing objectives. So I think we need to move on from that. I appreciate that the other person in this case raised a lot of issues about the company and about the company's operating abilities, etc. That's not relevant.
That's not relevant to the license.
If we can move on from that one, please.
Yeah. Right. To my final point, you'll be pleased to hear, is that when it was decided that the area was being granted, and I was asked for my feedback before this process actually took place, I actually asked for the designated area to be clearly marked on the pavement to prevent disputes. The worst thing that can happen is people arguing over the use of outside space and encroachment. Now, looking at the area, the panel have already mentioned that there are a row of bollards, which is what the space loungers initially applied for, and this is a natural boundary. I cannot understand why my request that was not agreed to, as it was a reasonable request, so that the area concerned be clearly marked, so that when people are unloading or walking along, they don't have to, determine what space they're allowed to use. It should be any boundary street dispute benefits from clearly defined boundaries, and I've heard nothing today which has said they agree to this. In fact, they haven't. So I ask that the panel also consider this point of view. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other representations from the residents, etc., or is that it for today?
That's it for today.
Okay, thank you. Members, are there any questions you have, please? Sheila?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Wallace-Jones. I'm looking at page 41 in our pack. A picture. It's picture 5.
I'm sorry, you're breaking.
It's picture 5. On
picture
page
5.
Which got taken the night of the fire.
Oh, yes, yes.
On the 5th of December. I'm just looking at, we're looking towards the loungers building, aren't we? Where you've got a lorry. Now, on the other side, I see that the pavement is extended out.
It is only marginally, but only for a small, the distance in front of loungers. It actually narrows further along as the whole building line of the wharf extends outwards.
Okay.
Loungers is that large white building.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's really self-explanatory, and I appreciate the pictures that you sent because it does help me. And the loading bay, are there any time exclusions? Do they have to be there between 10 and whatever, or is that loading bay always there and can be used all the time?
It can be used all the time.
It can be used all the time. Thank you very much, Mrs. Wallace.
Okay. John, questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm just looking at the picture 3, in fact, and I'm concerned about the use of Custom House Passage. Is this public access?
Yes, it's an ancient right of passage through from the wharf up to 4th Street. Now, because 4th Street is a very narrow single track road, a lot of the businesses park in the loading bay on the wharf and walk through with their goods to service, the shops. We've got a deli up at the top and other licensed premises. During the day, driving down 4th Street is extremely difficult. So the wharf is the main route.
Thank you, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, did you have any particular questions, or are you okay?
I'm okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Right, we finished with that point then. We'll move on to, there's no other parties that wish to speak or are coming in, as far as I'm aware, at all. So I will go back to Robert, the solicitor, if you wanted to answer any questions or come back with any points as far as the residents and so forth are concerned, if you will, please.
I'm happy to address you again in my final summary address, if you like. So
yes, please. Yes.
I've got no questions. So is everybody else finished? And I can then summarise.
I believe so. I don't think we've got anybody else that is. Helen, we've got nobody else that's wishing to speak or so forth, have we?
No, it's Helen Snell, Chairman. No, I think we can now move to point 17 of our procedure, which is final submission from the applicant. Thank you.
Problem. Okay, and then Robert, if you want to proceed, that'll be carry on, please.
Thank you very much. The crux of the matter today is whether you agree to the sale of alcohol to people who are sitting at the tables and chairs outside. The pavement licence has already been issued, so we have the authority to place tables and chairs out there. And so the only aspect of this application that seems to be relevant today in terms of the objection is whether we can sell, whether those people sitting there can consume a glass of wine or a beer. And actually no mention has been made of that at all by Mrs. Wallace-Jones. Her concerns are actually about us having tables and chairs there, and that decision has already been taken. And as Mark has helpfully said, this is not a rerun of planning applications. It's not a rerun of the pavement license application. So your experts have already looked at this. They've looked at the space. They've looked at the safety. Highways have looked at it, and they are satisfied that it is safe and appropriate for the pavement license to be issued and for the tables and chairs to be out there, subject to the conditions that have been imposed on the license. So, as I say, it's helpful that Mrs. Wallace-Jones has confirmed that she's got no objections to what we're doing inside the premises or the hours that we've sought. So it really is just whether we can serve alcohol outside, and so we could simply amend the plan, take that area off the licensed area and treat it as off sales. But then so it's more difficult to condition the use of the area. So I would have thought it's better for Mrs. Wallace-Jones and for everybody concerned if that area forms part of the licensed premises, which obviously we then can't use if the pavement license expires. A range of issues have been brought in by Mrs. Wallace-Jones, including the disability access. Again, that will have been looked at by your officers, and I would ask that you defer to your experts on that. We're satisfied that there is sufficient access route for the people with disability. Thank you to Mark for confirming that the success or otherwise the business is not a factor. Lounges are doing extremely well in the present circumstances to be looking at expansion, and I would hope that the committee is pleased, will be pleased to receive this operator into the area. Mrs. Wallace-Jones is asking for clearly marked, defined boundaries. Well, we're, as Tom has said, we are going to be having a barrier, so it would be absolutely clear to people where the tables and chairs are. So I don't quite understand that concern. I don't think we can even mark the pavements. I live in North London, where during the early times of COVID, a police officer rather foolishly apprehended a cafe owner who was trying to mark with chalk an area where people could stand, and he issued her with a ticket. That was a fairly extreme action, which went viral. But it will be absolutely clear to people where our tables and chairs are. The issue of people and masks, all I can say there is that we will be complying with the COVID regulations as they apply at the relevant time. We have the latest regulations published last night. All of this needs to be digested, so as and when we are open for trade, we will comply with the relevant regulations and indeed the guidance. The two are not always the same. And finally, I hope that you'll agree that you are granting, if you are minded to grant, a license to a responsible operator, already experienced at operating within Cornwall. They have 170 licenses, and none of those licenses have been subject to a license review. Mrs. Wallace-Jones will be aware that there is a facility for review, as is the case for every license, and that's the way that licensing works. It's generally a fairly permissive piece of legislation with a sting in the tail, and that I would hope that any concerns can be addressed, and if they're not, then there is a facility to review the license. I'm absolutely certain that will not be necessary, as indicated by the successful operations of 170 venues elsewhere. But thank you for listening in quite extraordinary circumstances. And if you have any further questions or conditions in mind, I would be very grateful after you've retired to consider the decision whether you give me the opportunity to readdress you. What we have found at hearings, one or two hearings elsewhere, is that if we've been given that opportunity to just have a discussion, it would have saved an awful lot of time and expense. So if there's anything about the application or whatever I've said that is still causing concern, I'd be grateful if you'd give me the opportunity to readdress you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Members, are there any questions at this point we wish to ask before we retire? So,
I'm fine, thank you, Chair.
Sean?
No, thank you.
Okay, but then before we retire, Helen, I'll pass it over to you to read out the declaration.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say before we do go into private session, what has been common practice with our Licensing Act subcommittees is that we ask participants to leave the meeting and members, Mark Andrews and myself, stay in the meeting. But as we've got in this instance quite a few people here, some of which are for the next meeting, I would suggest, if okay with you, Chairman, if we leave this meeting and go into our deliberation using our Teams link from our previous legal briefing session.
Okay.
Okay. So I will read the notice to go into private session, ask members to vote on it, and then we will leave and we will come back to the meeting when you've deliberated and made a decision.
Okay, that sounds sensible, yes.
Okay, thank you. So, in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following business. on the grounds that they would be likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information of the following description. Information in respect of which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings, and that the proceedings apart from the resolution shall remain confidential. So could I have a proposer for that, please?
I would propose that.
Thank you. That's a proposer from Councillor John Martin. And do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Councillor Matt Luke.
Thank you. It's seconded by Councillor Luke. I'll just do a roll call so that we can confirm the decision. Councillor Lennox Boyd.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Luke.
4.
And Councillor Martin.
4.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So
before we leave, Helen, could you make sure you send us a link for us to go back into, because I'm getting links coming up for the neighbourhoods meeting that I'm meant to be in as well today, so I don't want to join neighbourhoods and not come back to the licensing.
No, Chairman, it is the link that you used at 10:15.
Well, I think I might have turned that off, so
okay, that's okay. I'll resend it to you in an email.
Lovely.
Before we go into that, Mark has got his hand up, Chairman.
Yeah, I was just going to say Mark's got his hand up. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I just clarify then? So in terms of the live stream, Helen, will that be paused or will that continue now? Just
yes, we will pause the live stream, and I will then ask our meeting producer to resume the live stream when we come back.
And if that's paused, the people on the call aren't cut off?
Now, that is a technical question which I will find out.
My question as well. Are we sitting on the call?
Yeah,
now waiting.
that's what I mean. If it's the case, Chair, that it does cut people off, then for clarification purposes, when the live stream is switched back on, you will be able to see it. So you can leave your live stream on and you can see the decision anyway. And if you're unable to do that for any reason, if you've got to leave and go out or whatever, then the licensing officer will contact anyone who's made a representation and the applicant's representatives to tell them what the decision was. And that's usually done, well, it will be done later today in terms of the decision, and then the full wording will be provided within the next few days, because obviously that needs to be final, typed up basically. So yeah, so if it's possible for you to stay on when the live stream is paused, which Helen's checking at the moment, then that's up to you whether you just want to sit there and wait, because that's what you'll be doing. But otherwise, if you do want to leave, you can either watch it on the live stream or you'll be contacted by the licensing officer. So hopefully that's clear, but I'm happy to answer any.
Yeah, if I drop off, Claire's got my telephone.
Yeah.
Ring me, then I can bring the others in, because we're on a WhatsApp group. So
yeah, if the members want to come back in, for any points of clarification, then we'll have to get everyone back in. That doesn't normally happen, but like you say, if they're looking at conditions that haven't already been discussed, then that might be the case. Or if they're looking at anything else, so don't worry,
Okay, Helen.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, for the purposes of the live stream, I can confirm that nobody will be cut off, but we will just pause the live stream so that it's not streaming for, 15-20 minutes with nothing happening. So if I can ask now that the live stream be paused, and that Hello, Helen Snell, Democratic Services. I can confirm that we are now back in public session and live streaming, but if I could just get members to vote on that. So can I have a proposer to return to public session, please?
Councillor Matt Luke, I propose we go back into live session.
Thank you, Councillor Luke. And a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Councillor
Thank you. That's Councillor Lennox Boyd. If I can just do a roll call, please. Councillor Lennox Boyd?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Luke?
4.
And Councillor Martin?
4.
Thank you. That's all carried. Thank you, Chairman.
Are we ready to continue now then?
Yes, Chairman, go ahead. If you'd like to invite your legal representative to announce the decision.
Okay, I shall hand over to Mark, our legal representative, get that out, and he will proceed with our finding for today.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just confirm you can hear me, please?
Yes, I can, yes.
Thank you, Chair. So the proposal is as follows. Arising from consideration of the report, the evidence, submissions from all parties, having regard to the statutory guidance, the Council's policy and the Licensing Act 2003, the application to grant the premises licence under the Licensing Act for Tretho Lounge, St Ives, be granted as applied for. Dealing with the various points raised in the representations. 1. Members note the representations received from the other persons in respect of the prevention of public nuisance and public safety licensing objectives. Members noted that the representations referred to concerns about noise from customers. However, members noted no representations have been received from any responsible authorities regarding the application. 2. In respect of the representations relating to the use of the outside area leading to problems with blocking the use of the pavement and making it dangerous for pedestrians and people with disabilities, as well as preventing deliveries, members noted that no concerns have been raised by the relevant responsible authorities in relation to these matters and did not feel that, on balance, there was evidence that this would occur. Members felt that the area intended to be used was relatively small and that there was sufficient space remaining for pedestrians and for vehicles to load and unload. Further, members noted that many of the concerns raised related to the granting of a pavement licence at the premises. Members noted the concerns but felt that this was a separate matter. Members also noted the conditions attached to the pavement licence and that these included specific conditions relating to this outside area. The premises have been granted a pavement licence, and if the premises wish to continue to use the outside area following the expiry of the pavement licence, then they would need to make a separate application for use of that area. Members did not feel that, on balance, granting the application would undermine the prevention of public nuisance or the public safety licensing objectives in respect of this specific application. 3. In respect of the representations relating to the manner in which the business operated and details regarding the company who were making the applications, members did not consider these to be relevant to the application and felt that they did not impact on the licensing objectives. 4. In respect of the representations related to concerns regarding a fire at a neighbouring property, members noted no representations have been received from the fire authority in respect of the application. 5. Taking all the information into account, including the representations from the other persons, members concluded that granting the application would not undermine the licensing objectives and therefore felt that it was reasonable and proportionate to grant the application. 6. Members further noted that if issues did arise at the premises, the premises licence could be subject to a review by the other persons or the responsible authorities. That's the proposal, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I will propose that proposal.
I'd second that, Mr. Chair.
All those in favour?
Thank you, Chairman. If I just do a roll call, so we've got a proposer by Councillor Luke, seconded by Councillor Martin. If I can do a quick roll call, Councillor Luke?
4.
Councillor Lennox Boyd?
4.
And Councillor Martin?
4.
That's all agreed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is Robert Bocco. What time shall I tell the applicants the next hearing to dial in?
We are going to proceed straight away. I think we'll give ourselves 5 minutes to set things up, as it were, and then we will be proceeding straight from that.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I confirm to everybody on the call, the live stream is continuing. So if you could make sure your cameras and microphones are muted while the necessary arrangements to call people in are made. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, it's Helen Snell from Democratic Services. I'm arranging today's licensing meeting. We have a caller joined us with phone number ending 362. Would you be able to confirm who you are, please? Caller ending number 362, please.
I believe that's Paul Rossiter.
Thank you. That's Linda Edmonds.
Sorry.
Speaking. Paula, are you there, please?
Sorry, it's Mark Andrews from Legal here. Can you just explain the procedure if they've been muted, please?
Yes. Anybody that.
Hello, yeah, Paul Rossiter.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mark, for the reminder. Yes, if anybody does get muted during proceedings or finds themselves on mute, if you dial *6 on your telephone, and that will bring you back into the meeting. Thank you. Linda, could you confirm you're now happy that all your applicants, representatives and other persons are present, please?
I believe Ellie Mayer should be present, as should Sergeant Harvey from the police. I think we have Mr. Botkai, the solicitor, acting for the applicant. We have Mr. Rossiter, and I am not sure whether Mr. Mahan is in attendance.
Okay, what I'll do then is if I go through the telephone numbers that we've got.
Yeah.
So we have number ending 936, which is the solicitor Robert Botkai, and we have telephone number ending 345, which is Andrew Sanders, also a legal representative. We have number ending 362, which is Paul Rossiter. We also have a number ending 450. Caller on 450, could you advise who you are, please? Is there a caller ending 450, please? Sorry, we can't hear you. Linda, are you able to advise the name of the caller?
I got a feeling it may be, if it commences with 01566, Sergeant Harvey.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's not displaying that number on my phone, but we do go through a public exchange, so my apologies.
Okay, okay, so lovely, thank you. So for the purposes of the meeting, Chairman, the caller on our screen ending 450 is the police representative. There's also somebody else waiting in the lobby, which I will just admit, and they are on telephone number ending 179.
That's John Mahan.
Hello, it's Helen Snell, Democratic Services. Caller that's just joined us ending phone number 179. Could you confirm who you are, please? Caller ending 179. Believe it's John Mahan.
John Mahan.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Luke, you're on mute.
Okay.
Chairman, for the purposes of this meeting as well, I can see one caller that does not have a number showing. So on my screen, it's showing as anonymous. So when we go through all the introductions, by process of elimination, if we will then find out who that other person is. Thank you.
Right, okay. Okay, afternoon. We're afternoon, aren't we? Yes. Everyone, I am Councillor Matt Luke. I am elected chairman for today's proceedings. I will hand over. Oh, hello. Okay. If I just go around a moment and ask everyone to introduce themselves a minute, and I can make a list of who is here and who isn't here, etc. I'll start with myself, Councillor Matt Luke, and my ward is Penwithwick and Piscopa, County Councillor on Cornwall County Council.
Hello, my name is John Martin. I'm Cornwall Councillor for Helston South.
Good afternoon. I'm Sheila Lennox Boyd, Cornwall Councillor for Sutton Ash North. Thank you.
Okay. We have the solicitor Robert Bosquet. We've already spoken to this morning, and if we could ask who is the applicant today, please.
Sorry, who is the applicant?
Yes.
Well, the applicant is Mostill Group. It's Robert Bockhai here. I'm representing the applicant.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I have with me Paul Rossiter, who's the area manager.
Okay, so he's a manager.
They're here to assist. I'm representing them. So if there are any questions, I can't deal with them.
So you're representing Robert, and the manager is Paul Rossiter.
Area manager is Paul Rossiter, and John Mahan is responsible for all of the licences within the MFG group. Okay, group. Sergeant Harvey obviously is representing the police. Is there anyone else out there that I've not already being listed, please?
You should have Ellie Mayer. Sorry, it's Sergeant Harvey. I'm hoping Ellie Mayer is presenting the police.
Okay. Ellie Mayer.
Chairman, it's Helen Snell, Democratic Services. Ellie, we are assuming you are showing on our screens as the anonymous person, and you are on mute. Could you unmute and introduce yourselves? yourself, please. Thank you.
To unmute, you might need to press *6 if you didn't hear that advice before. *6 to unmute your phone. Thank you.
Hello, it's Ellie Mayer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Sorry. My number's withheld. Ellie Mayer, Police Licensing.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, Helen, is there any other procedures we need to do before we continue on?
No, Chairman, if you continue now to on your procedure note, we are on section 4.
Okay. I'll explain procedures. Well, basically, we will give the applicant, we'll give the licensing officer a chance to set out the license we are hearing today. Then the applicant will be able to give us their view on their license, and then any other people that wish to speak for it as well from relevant authorities, etc. So we will hand on over to Linda to set out the license we're looking at today, or hearing today rather, should I say.
Thank you, Chair. We have an application that's been received from Motor Fuel Limited to vary the existing premises licence in respect to Bude service station at Bencoolen Road in Bude. There is an existing premises licence in force which permits the supply of alcohol for consumption off the premises between 0600 and 0200 hours Monday to Sunday, with late night refreshment being authorised between 2300 and 0500 hours Monday to Sunday. The premises is currently permitted to open to the public 24 hours a day. The conditions attached to the existing licence are set out on pages 57 and 58 of the report. The premises is described as a petrol forecourt store. The plan of the premises attached to the existing licence is provided at Appendix 1 on page 70 of the report, together with a plan showing the location of the premises attached at Appendix 2 on page 71. The application seeks to extend the hours the premises is permitted to supply alcohol and amend the existing condition relating to adult entertainment. The variation requests authorisation to supply alcohol for consumption off the premises 24 hours a day, Monday to Sunday, and for the adult entertainment condition to now enable the sale of age-restricted products such as magazines. No change is required to the hours the premises is to open to the public, as the premises is currently authorised to open to the public 24 hours a day. The application proposes no additional steps to promote the 4 licensing objectives than those already provided within the existing licence. Representation has been received from the Devon and Cornwall Constabulary with suggested conditions to remedy their representation. Details of their representation and suggested conditions are set out on pages 59 and 60 of the report. Subsequent to the representation, discussions have taken place between the applicant's agent, Winkworth Sherwood, and the police, with no agreement being reached. Content of the email communications between both parties has been included on pages 60 to 63 of the report. One representation has been received from another person, Sarah Rodder, detail of which is provided on page 63 of the report. Although the officer has been unable to establish Miss Rodder's home address, based on the content of the representation, I believe it is a fair assumption that Miss Rodder lives in close proximity to the premises. Miss Rodder has been sent details of the hearing, however, despite a number of emails and telephone messages requesting that she contact us, no response has been received. Response to the application has been received from the local planning authority, the fire and rescue authority, child protection and licensing compliance, with no objections. No response has been received from Environmental Protection, Trading Standards, Public Health or Health and Safety. The licensing authority, when considering an application, must have regard to the guidance issued under section 182 of the Licensing Act and to its adopted licensing policy. Members' attention is drawn to, but not limited to, certain extracts of the Council's statutory guidance and Licensing Act policy as set out in the report on pages 64 to 67. When considering the application, members should decide, having considered all the evidence, whether on balance of probability one or more of the licensing objectives will be undermined. If the answer is yes, members should then decide what action is appropriate to promote the licensing objectives. Options for consideration are: grant the application in the terms sought, grant the application subject to additional conditions, grant the application but modify conditions, grant the application subject to restrictions, or reject the application. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mark, I see you got your hand up there. Did you want to add anything before we proceed?
Just a point of clarification from Linda, please, if I may, Chairman. Sorry, it's Mark Andrews from Legal Services here. I'm the Solicitor Advising the Committee. Linda, did you say that you didn't have an address from the person who made a representation?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So just for the benefit of everyone that's part of the meeting, I will be advising members of the weights or otherwise that should therefore be given to that representation. So Mr. Botko might want to cover that anyway, but I'm sure he will. But just for clarity, obviously, if we don't have an address for that person, they can still make a representation, but we would, you know, we don't know where they live, so that obviously poses difficulties. And also, for anyone who's watching the live stream whilst they're on the line, if they could turn that off, please, because we're getting feedback. So if you're watching the live stream whilst you're on the telephone, then if you could please stop, close that down, and because otherwise we get terrible feedback. Otherwise you might be muted. So just for that, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to say that there's some sort of interference in the background. We'll proceed on then. Members, is there any questions you wish to ask the licensing officer?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Chair.
No, well, we'll carry on then. Any questions to the licensing service? I think we've already covered that. There's no other people joining the meeting other than we have already. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairman. Mark Andrews from Legal. Yeah, we move on to the applicant now, Chairman.
Okay, fine. We'll proceed on to Robert again then.
Yeah.
To proceed on to the next, another meeting.
Another meeting. I'm going to give a go. It's testing the batteries of my AirPods. Are struggling with. I might have to take them off at some point. But good afternoon again, and thank you for sitting today to consider this application. Now, I should have with me Paul Rossiter, who is the area manager for Medfuel Group, and John Mahan, who is responsible for the alcohol licenses around the country. A little bit of background: MFG owns and operates some 860 petrol stations in England and Wales, of which 622 of them are 24-hour licenses. They seek 24-hour licenses where the premises are open for trade 24 hours, as is the case here. So the site at Bude does trade 24 hours, but at the moment its license is restricted to 600 to 0200. Just one for clarification. Sorry, in the licensing officer's introduction was reference to adult material. I think all that's happened here is that somebody stick to form. There's no change to what we do at the premises. All petrol station shops will sell, the usual magazines and what have you. So we always tick the box. So there's nothing sinister there. We're not turning into an adult entertainment venue or shop. So I thought I'd just clarify that. Can I just check that I can be heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
Everybody.
Excellent. It's somewhat unnerving still sitting in one's home and just talking. But I'll carry on. So a little bit of history on this one. That we had a license that allowed the sale of alcohol from 6 in the morning till 12 midnight, and then the late night refreshment license was in line with, rather bizarrely, with a nightclub in the area. So the late night refreshment was limited to 2 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays and 5 a.m. the rest of the week. In January 2020, we applied for a 24-hour license, so to extend the late night refreshment and to extend the alcohol hours. And the police had some concerns because of the nightclub, principally because of the nightclub called Bed, B-E-D. And we were told that that was open 2 days a week, and that people might come from that club and descend on the petrol station. So we then agreed to restrict that variation to 2 a.m. 7 days for alcohol, 7 days a week, and the police agreed with that. And so that's how we get to the present situation, which is that the alcohol sales are permitted until 2 a.m. and the late night refreshment is 24 hours. So it's 11 p.m. To 5 a.m. So that was all agreed with your police licensing officer, Bob Henderson, last year. So it didn't actually go to hearing. We're now at the point where we wish to extend again, and hopefully for the last time. First of all, bearing in mind your own policy and paragraph 7.16, that unless there are good reasons for restricting hours of operation, shops, stores and supermarkets will be permitted to sell alcohol for consumption off the premises at any times when the retail outlet is open for shopping. So the starting point then is that if you are to refuse this application or restrict it in some way, you would need some evidence to support that decision to go against your stated and published policy, which is in fact in line with the government's own policy under section 182 of the Licensing Act, which again states that shops should generally be allowed to match their trading hours unless there are good reasons to restrict them. We're not really very far apart with the police, and I'd like to thank, I think Ellie is on the phone. She's always been very helpful when I've had questions and very accessible. So I'd like to thank Ellie for that. I think where we've got to in terms of the outstanding issue is that the police have asked for conditions to go on the license. So they wouldn't oppose the 24-hour application if we agree to the following conditions. And they're on page 61 of the bundle. I'll just pause there, perhaps if you want to bring up those conditions. Oh, no, it's not, those are ours, sorry. Right, their conditions are page 60. Yeah. So the first one being no alcohol to be consumed in the service station or any external areas of the service station at any time. And the second is it to be a SIA licensed store supervisor on duty from 2 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the morning. And they've actually amended that further. So I think the police would agree that it was just on certain days of the week, Wednesday to Saturday, that they would require the security guard to be present. So Wednesday to Saturday, 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. So that's how far we've got in terms of the police conditions. And then we went back with alternative conditions on page 61 that will display signage and that will risk assess the need for a security guard to be present. If I can just explain the issues we have with the two conditions proposed by the police, because on the face of it, they would seem to be perfectly reasonable. It's really important that the condition, it's got to be proportionate, it's got to be appropriate, and it's got to be capable of being complied with and also being enforced. So the first one is that no alcohol to be consumed in the service station. Let's take that part of it. Well, that is the law. So we have an off license. So it is against, it would be an offence for us to allow anybody to consume alcohol on the premises. So whilst we've no objection to that wording as such. It's not necessary because it's duplication of existing law, and so would cause some confusion. It then says no alcohol to be consumed on any external areas of the service station at any time, and we completely agree with the sentiment behind that. But it must be borne in mind that a breach of a condition would render any alcohol sales unlawful, and there are very severe penalties for that. Now, if someone were to purchase alcohol in the shop and open a can or whatever on the external area of the service station, which is not defined, then we will be committing a criminal offence, and it's something that we can't actually control. We can have signage and we can encourage customers, and our customers don't behave in that way anyway. We don't have any experience of people consuming alcohol on the petrol forecourt. So as a condition, it simply doesn't work. It's not enforceable. We are not able to enforce it. We can't comply with that. We can't follow every customer out of the store and make sure that they don't open anything until they are away from our premises. And if we have too much signage there, then that can cause issues. Well, we don't want to really flag it as an issue, but we'll agree in signage that I've put in my conditions. So that's the reason why we've not agreed the first condition. And then, perhaps more importantly, the door supervisor to be on duty from 2 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm taking it that the police position is still Wednesday to Saturday. We don't really understand the need for a door supervisor. That person would need to be an SIA security guard. They would presumably be inside the shop. We operate through a night pay window during the night, so the shop doors are closed. So nobody comes in and out of the shop during the night. We only operate through a night pay window. I don't think even the police are suggesting that we have a security guard standing outside every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Friday, every Saturday between 2 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning, just in case a customer arrives. It's very quiet at those times generally, and we don't have issues. So if the security guard was inside the store, that doesn't really deal with any issues that the police are referring to, and it would be completely disproportionate to have a security guard patrolling the hours of 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. 52 weeks a year, Wednesday to Saturday. Now, I think the reasoning from the police is that the Bed nightclub has got licensed hours, and indeed it's licensed on Wednesday and Thursday to 2 a.m. and Friday and Saturday to 3 a.m. and Sunday to 1 a.m. But Bed has not operated now for some time. My understanding is that when it was open, it was only open 2 days a week. It's obviously not operated now since probably March. We don't know when it's going to open again. We don't know if it will open again, and we don't know if it does open, in what form it will open. Nobody knows now what will be the future of nightclubs, sadly. And there has to come a point where we should be able to carry on our business, which is able to open and comply and trade lawfully and responsibly, and that we shouldn't be restricted because of police concerns about another premise or people leaving another premise which actually isn't open, hasn't been opened for many months, and we don't know if and when it will open again and in what form. What I have done is spoken to the area manager about how when Bed was open, or when other late night venues were open in the area, was there any difficulty at the petrol station? And the answer to that was no. It's never been a problem in the past. And I remind you that we had a license to midnight, and from January last year we had a license to 2 a.m. So it would have been quite possible for people leaving any late night venues in the area to venture to the petrol station and cause problems, but they haven't done so. The police have presented no evidence whatsoever during the course of the discussions and in the papers today that there has been any problem to date at this venue caused by patrons of Bed or indeed any other nightclub venue. So it's based on a concern or a fear that the police have that if we have the 24-hour license, and if bed or other late night venues resume, that some of their patrons may decide to come to our store, and that could result in crime and disorder. It's a big stretch, and Mark will no doubt advise you on the Daniel Thwaites decision, which talks about migration and the requirement for real evidence when making a decision of this nature. So the police case is based on a concern of what may happen in the future. There may be a migration of people coming from nightclubs to the petrol station, but there is no evidence that's been produced that this has ever happened in the past. And so in my submission, it would not be proportionate or reasonable to refuse the application on that basis. Now, nobody has a crystal ball. I can't sit here and say there will never be a problem. What I can say is that the lines are open, and I know from my working with MFG that if the police were to come to us and say, look, you've got the 24-hour license, we now have a problem during the night at the Bude petrol station, we'd like you to do something about it. I know, and John will be able to confirm, that the step that MFG would take is to immediately suspend the all-night sales and investigate and only reinstate those sales when satisfied that there would be no crime and disorder or public nuisance or whatever the issue is. They have lots of experience of operating 24-hour licenses. I have attended numerous hearings with John, with MFG, and normally it's residents who are concerned. It's normally residents who are saying, if this license is granted, this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, please don't grant the 24-hour license. And at every one of those hearings, I've said the same thing, please, we don't believe that this will happen. If it does happen, contact us and we will do something about it. And if we don't do something about it, then we know perfectly well that there is a review process, and the police or anybody else could bring an application for review. So there have been one or two issues during COVID, actually during summer months at petrol stations. People have been out and about a lot more, and we have suspended those sales at those stores and worked with the police, worked with local residents, and been commended for it. We don't expect that to happen here. I know that speaking to Paul is the area manager. The store has been extremely busy during the summer. Cornwall has been extremely popular, and it's been extremely busy, but no incidents have been reported. I've also asked him about the next door neighbour. Well, we don't actually know where Sarah Rodder lives. As Mark said, it's very difficult if we have an objection from somebody. We don't know really who they are or where they come from or what sort of complaints they have about us. We've had no complaints from any of the neighbours, and certainly not from Sarah Rodder. So if licensing is able to communicate with her, we're very happy to have a conversation with her outside of this hearing and listen to any concerns that she may have wherever she may live. There are no other representations from any of the other responsible authorities. So in terms of public nuisance, that would need to come from environmental health or trading standards, or indeed the licensing authority, and there are no representations. So I would submit that there are no good reasons to restrict the hours. We know that having a license, in particular a 24-hour license, is a privilege. It's not a right, and it's something that has to be looked after very carefully. And we would aim to continue to work with officers should any problems arise. That's all I have to say. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Okay, members, are there any questions? Oh yes, John. If John goes first, and then Sheila after, if we can, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, thank you very much for a very clear presentation. One point I'd need to ask, in comparison with very similar spa shops on petrol forecourts, you're talking about the difficulty to sort of police the area after a certain time when people are taking drinks out of the shop, and to have difficulty to monitor people whether they open their drinks on the premises. Are you clear that on other similar businesses across the country that it hasn't been a problem?
It's not been a problem. I'm not saying that there's never been a problem. We've got 800 sites, so over 800 sites, there can be problems, and then they have to be managed. But it's not generally how people behave, and there's no reason to believe that they would behave in that way here. We already have a license. Unusually, we already have a license to 2 a.m. So if it was a problem with, if people were buying alcohol and consuming it on the forecourt, consuming it in the immediate neighbourhood, this would have been an ideal opportunity for residents to pile in with representation saying this has happened on that day, this has happened on that day, we're being disturbed, people are drinking all over the streets, and the police, of course, would have been able to produce crime reports or incident reports of evidence to say, well, we've had a call from the public at this time, at that time. It's already causing a problem. So in a way, we have an advantage that we've already trialled this. We've got 2 a.m. already. We've got late night refreshment. Now, initially, there was a resistance to having late night refreshment to 5 a.m. We've had that since last January, and there've been no issues raised. And there've been no issues raised since we had the midnight license or the 2 a.m. license. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And do you think that any CCTV coverage would assist in recording and producing evidence for this as well?
Well, absolutely. Our CCTV can only extend as far as the forecourt, and it does. Paul will confirm that, but we can't put cameras in neighbouring properties or elsewhere. So we already have the CCTV.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Sheila?
Thank you, Chair. Again, after Mr. Botkai, you say that the garage operates a night pay window procedure. What hours does this operation cover?
Paul will confirm. I believe it's 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Is it, Paul?
It's 11 till 5.
11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Thank you.
So the person operating at the window would be in control of any alcohol or anything served at that window?
Yeah, so it's generally, almost all of the 24-hour licenses operate that way, and it's certainly our preference and the police preference that we operate that way. It gives greater control. It's easier for the cashier to say no.
Yeah, safety. And just another, if I may, Chair, how can you tell me how close the nightclub is actually to the garage?
Speaking to Paul this morning, I think it's about half a mile. It's some distance from. It's a considerable walk further into the town, I think. Paul, you know the geography better than I do.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere between half a mile to a mile.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
It's not that we are sitting immediately next door to the nightclub, and they will all tip out from the nightclub into the petrol station.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
John, did you want to come back? John, you're muted.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just wondering, are you aware of any other 24/7 facilities similar in the area?
I don't think MFG. I don't know where the nearest MFG one is. Paul has 16 sites in his area, and all of the 24-hour operations are licensed 24 hours. Paul, where is your nearest site?
My nearest site that's 24 hours is Lewis Services, which is about 25-minute drive away from Bude, just around Launceston.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other companies? I mean, opening a 24/7 in Bude? That's what I'm thinking of. Are you the only 24/7 retailer?
We haven't researched that as such because we're focused on these premises. Paul, are you aware of any?
To my knowledge, there's no other 24-hour shops in Bude.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Mark, was there any questions you wish to ask at this point in time?
No, thank you, Chairman. Mark from Legal. No, thank you.
Right. Okay then. Helen, I don't think we have any other representatives from the public at the moment. It's just the police representatives. Is that correct?
Chairman, it's Helen Snell, Democratic Services. No, I can't see anybody else that has joined the call. Could I just confirm, Linda, Licensing Officer, you're not expecting anybody else, are you?
No, Linda speaking, not expecting anyone else other than the police.
Okay then. I shall at this point then hand over to our colleagues from the police. Was it Ellie that was representing, or is it Sergeant Harvey?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, hi, it's Ellie Mayer. If possible, could I speak first and then pass on to Sergeant Harvey?
Yes, carry on. You proceed, no problem at all.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon. My name's Ellie Mayer and I'm the Police Licensing Officer employed by Devon and Cornwall Police. I'm representing the Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Police. The police representation relates to the variation application for Bude Service Station. This will be the fourth application that has been made whereby the premises have applied for a 24-hour licence for the sale of alcohol. It is the police view that the additional hours applied for will lead to the migration of inebriated persons arriving at the petrol station when other licensed premises have closed or are closing. This increases the likelihood of an escalation of crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour at the premises. It has been demonstrated through the force area over the last few months via the Cove Restrictions that numbers of people frequenting the evening nighttime economy like to continue their experience as long as possible. When pubs are closing at say 10 or 11 o'clock at night, many customers around the force area made their way to off-licence who were still open in order to continue their alcohol consumption. The concern of the police is that this trend will continue once the evening nighttime economy venues have closed in the area, and the proximity of the petrol station could make this a viable option for them. Prior to committee's hearing, efforts have been made to engage with the applicant in requesting supporting information so that more informed discussion could take place prior to the application being submitted to the local authority. The applicant has chosen not to provide any additional supporting information within this application. To simply transfer the conditions would not demonstrate support of the licensing objectives, and in the opinion of the police would not safeguard the staff, customers or other members of the public. The conditions should be proportionately targeted on deterrence and prevention of crime and disorder and public safety. The premises is situated in close proximity to Bude Town Centre. There are a large number of public houses and a nightclub only moments away. The nightclub operates until 3:30 a.m. on a Friday and Saturday, 2:30 Wednesday and Thursday, 1:30 Sundays, and 12:30 on a Monday and a Tuesday. However, if there is a bank holiday weekend, they are able to operate until 3:30 all weekend, which does include the Monday. The premises is also situated within a built-up residential area directly opposite our elderly residential properties, along with housing for sheltered accommodation. It is the police view that the hours applied for past 2 a.m. will result in a higher proportion of intoxicated customers using the premises, increasing possible late night noise nuisance, antisocial behaviour and violence that is already in occurrence from patrons leaving other establishments. Groups of intoxicated people congregating and queuing in the forecourt of the premises, increasing the potential for public nuisance. We do have 3 previous calls from the premises, one on the 23rd of June 2020 at 03:58, where police were called by a member of the public reporting 2 females who were under the influence and trying to purchase alcohol from the service station, causing a disturbance by beeping the horn of their car in the forecourt before screeching away. On the 2nd of August 2020 at almost 1 o'clock, staff called the police to assist with a large fight taking place on the forecourt involving approximately 12 males and females. On the 6th of August, finally, at 02:08, staff called the police due to a fight at the premises. Another important factor I would like to bring to your attention is what is known as the ARID data. Data information highlights where patients attend the hospital as a result of being assaulted.
Sorry, Chairman, it's Mark. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Mark.
Sorry to interrupt, Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned about this evidence. I just want to check, has this information been supplied to the applicant in advance of the hearing?
No, it hasn't.
The three logs, no.
No. And what about the information you're about to refer to now?
So our data is, I haven't submitted you our data, but it's just a statistic.
Okay, well,
we've not seen that.
Hang on a sec, Chairman. What the hearing regulations state is that you can't, well, in a nutshell, you can't produce evidence on the day. So what you can do it if the other side don't object to it. But
okay, it's just the status statistic of the ARID, and they're just 3 calls that have come through.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm a bit unsure why that information. Perhaps you could clarify why that information hasn't been provided to the applicant in advance of the hearing, just for the members' benefit.
I haven't been able to do it because I haven't been here, so that's just the information that I've just put through now. So if it's not relevant, then disregard it.
Yeah, well, it's not that it's not relevant. It's just that it can't be part of these proceedings if you haven't given it to the other party unless they consent to it. So on that basis, I would. Oh, hang on a sec. On that basis, I would ask the applicant's representative if they are happy for that information to be produced, although I imagine as they don't know what the officer's going to say, it's unlikely that they're going to be happy with it, but I will still ask the question anyway.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. I know I got told off for interrupting in the previous hearing, and I was about to press the button. We didn't have any of this information before, and there has been sufficient correspondence between us and the police, both before we submitted the application and during the representation period, for them to produce this information to us. I know that Ellie was on holiday during the Christmas period, but there was plenty of opportunity before Christmas for this information to be supplied, and we've had no information whatsoever. So yeah, in order to consider it properly, I would have had to receive it before today.
Okay, thank you. So on that basis, Chairman,
I can skip through.
well, hang on, sorry, I'm advising the Chairman. If you just give me a second. So on that basis, Chairman, I would suggest that we don't produce any additional information that the other side haven't seen. We have to be fair to all parties here. So yeah, that would be my advice, but it's obviously a matter for you as the chair.
Yeah, I was just going to say we didn't receive any of this representation in our pack for consideration, which we maybe should have done, and so forth, the applicant as well. So I'd ask the police to continue, but to be aware that, you know, we haven't seen any of this, and neither has the other representatives for the applicant. So we're kind of on sticky grounds, to be honest with you. So Ellie, is there anything else you wish to add at this point?
I'll just finish off. I'll just get through that part and just go on to the last piece, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. The police also have concerns over staff customers and other members of the public. There is a concern over the staffing of the petrol station, which, through experience, tends to be with younger, less experienced members of staff in this field throughout the Force area. We have received no assurances as to the calibre of the staff which will be employed. The core business of the petrol station is the refuelling of vehicles, and the concern is that without any security staff to monitor customers those under the influence of alcohol are likely to be fully aware of their surroundings and may interact unfavourably with vehicles attending the forecourt.
Chair, I'm struggling to take a note of everything that's being said. Ellie's breaking up a little bit and talking very quickly.
Okay. Ellie, if you would start again, please, and repeat that.
Okay, the core business of the petrol station is the refuelling of vehicles, and the concern is that without any security staff to monitor customers, that customers under the influence of alcohol are less likely to be fully aware of their surroundings and may interact unfavourably with vehicles attending the forecourt. We ask the committee to give these concerns when determining an extension of the operating hours of the premises. Although the police do not support the additional extra hours, if the committee are minded to grant this application, it is the police view that the suggested conditions are incorporated in the operating schedule, and that is for no alcohol to be consumed in the service station or any external areas at any time, and for one SIA door supervisor to be on duty from 2 a.m. until 5 a.m. to assist towards prevention of crime and disorder. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, are there any questions you wish to ask Ellie before we move on to Sergeant Harvey? John, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just concerning, do you consider it for 7 days a week that security person needs to be there, or just for the time when potential nightclub activity maybe exists?
We've always asked, every application that's come in, we've always asked the door security to be on duty. Historically, we said 2, then we reassessed it and said 1. To answer the question, we did ask for 7 days a week, and then discussing it with the local sergeant, we then said, okay, on the nights where, so it would be from Wednesday till Saturday, because the other evenings, the club, for example, would close, or the premises would close earlier. However, obviously on a bank holiday weekend, that might not be the case.
Thank you.
Okay, Sheila, have you got any questions?
No, I'm fine, thank you, Chair.
Okay, then we'll hand over to Sergeant Harvey then, if we can, please.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm the police sergeant responsible for the safety of the communities around the Bute town and 3 other towns as well. So I just wanted to give you my sort of policing perspective. I've been in the Northeast Cornwall for 18 years, so I've got some experience of the issues.
Sorry, I'm really sorry to interrupt. This is Robert Bockley again. Has a statement been produced by Sergeant Harvey? Because I don't think I've seen anything. Again, it's going to be new material.
I haven't submitted a statement. It's a perspective that I've been asked to give.
All right, Chairman, it's Mark Andrews from Leeway.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you to come in, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have an issue with the officer speaking. I don't know what where Mr. Bockley's coming from. I mean, if the officer starts speaking about things that are completely irrelevant to the application, or things that the applicant hasn't had sight of, then that wouldn't be appropriate. But I'm sure that the officer, after what I said previously to Ellie, I'm sure that the officer appreciates that. So I think if we let the officer speak, and I don't necessarily think he has to produce a statement, because all he's doing is speaking as to the representation. Obviously, if he starts raising new issues, then that's another matter. But I think for the time being, Chairman, I think if Sergeant Harvey could continue, that would be my advice.
Yes, if you can continue, Sergeant Harvey, and if we could just let him finish, please, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, no, I understand the restriction placed on me, and I'll try and avoid aggravating anybody in the committee. So thank you. I just wanted to explain that historically, Bude does have antisocial behaviour problems, both with young people and adults connected to the nighttime economy. There is a significant influx of visitors to the area during holiday season, as you can imagine. Bude Town was successful in securing Police and Crime Commissioner funding for 2020 summer period, and that paid for 2 private contractor street marshals during the 10 weeks of the summer season. And it was the street marshals' observations that alerted us to the involvement of the Spa filling station and its contribution to the issues that we were having in the town. I won't say any more than that. I appreciate the restriction I'm under, but we have a general concern for young people imbued with alcohol from any source, whether it's from home or whether it's freely available from reputable outlets. And the issues that were created this year that were reported back by the marshals was the availability of alcohol after hours of the traditional pubs, And I would correct the applicant, the fact that the club was closed during the summer, it wasn't. It was operating as a pub. It couldn't operate as a nightclub because of COVID regulations. It was operating, however, as a pub till 2 o'clock in the morning throughout the summer. And we identified that patrons of that premises were going on to the spa to collect alcohol. And I would suggest the fact that we're all talking about this premises, there's some viability study has been conducted to make the business case worthwhile. The second point I'd like to just make the committee aware of is that policing the nighttime economy is particularly challenging for us. The policing regulations and those governing shift work means that we're not able to extend officers' policing hours beyond what they currently are. And you might be alarmed to hear that at 3 o'clock in the morning, our policing numbers are halved because of that. Now, the other thing to be aware of is that we have limited resources in that area. It's not unique in our police geography, but it is uniquely challenging because it is so remote from other large towns that in itself it's vulnerable to officers being committed with other incidents. And when we have additional antisocial behaviour and disorder that we have to deal with, we have to call on neighbouring towns to provide that resource. And because of the geography, there's an inevitable delay in getting support to that area. So I kind of feel we're inviting additional antisocial behaviour. I appreciate we can't introduce any facts and figures and statistics, but it is known, and to grant the application without additional security measures would increase the risk to public safety. And that's my submission to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sergeant Harvey. Members, are there any questions you wish to ask?
No, thank you, Chair. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you much. Right, we will proceed on then to, we've got no other representations from anybody else that I'm aware of. Or no representations from any responsible authorities that I'm aware of, or other persons. So there's no other questions. Mark, or you wish to ask any questions or anything?
No, thank you, Chairman. It's Mark from Legal. No, thank you. I think it's up to the applicant now to sum up.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll go back to Robert to, I know, sorry, it's a little bit difficult. We've had some information that possibly we weren't aware of and so forth. And I should say, hopefully in future, the police will make sure that this is covered in future. That's all I'll say on that one. And if you'd like to sum up, please, Robert.
Thank you.
To carry on, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, you've got the representation from the police is a written document in which they had the opportunity to put in any evidence that they have to support their representation, and it even says on the form, please detail the evidence supporting the representation or the reason for your representations. Please use separate sheets if necessary. And the police haven't done. They didn't do that in their representation, and they've had opportunity up until 24 hours before the hearing to put in some evidence against the application. They haven't done that either. So there is no evidence that we appreciate that they do a fantastic job. We know that they're short-staffed, and we commend them for all their efforts. But and Ellie was talking about the operating hours of bed. Well, those weren't the operating hours. They were the licensed hours. They're the hours that they can operate for alcohol. But my understanding is that the club has never traded those hours. They haven't been trading 7 days a week. They were trading, certainly before COVID, our understanding is 2 or 3 days a week. If they've been operating as a pub until 2 o'clock in the morning during the summer, well, their patrons leaving after 2 o'clock wouldn't have been able to buy alcohol from the petrol station. So they simply would have been refused alcohol. And the fact that they were that's the case, operating as a pub until 2 o'clock in the morning, and there is no police evidence before you today that that has resulted in patrons sort of descending on the petrol station and causing crime and disorder and public nuisance, then that suggests that actually we can operate safely. Ellie mentioned that this is a fourth application. It may well be, but the police have objected at every step of the way and were asking for 2 security guards to be at the premises. I can't remember on the first application, but ever since. And on each occasion we've said, well, look, we don't have security guards at these petrol stations. It's completely unviable. That security guard would be standing around in the cold with actually nothing to do. We can't engage a security guard or two security guards for those hours when there is nothing for that person to do. It's completely disproportionate. They back down to 1 security guard, then we agreed to 2 a.m. So the 2 a.m. was first of all the midnight compromise. Let's see how it goes. There were no issues. We agreed to 2 a.m. on the next application. We agreed to 2 a.m. Compromise. Let's see how it goes. We always made it clear that our intention was to come back if there were no issues to 24 hours. We've operated now with the 2 a.m. license. There is no evidence from the police that this has caused the 2 a.m. license has actually caused the problems that they were concerned about when they objected to the midnight license and the 2 a.m. license. And here we are again. We're now applying for the 24-hour license, and there is no evidence from the police that the additional hours at 2 till 6 would cause those problems. Having said that, we are responsible retailers, and if we know about problems, then we can deal with them. And it would have been helpful. Ellie mentioned 3 incidents. It would have been helpful if that information had been before us. We can't have regard for today's proceedings, but obviously if Ellie could talk to us outside of these proceedings, and we will investigate those incidents. It's very important that these are looked at properly, because of course, in my experience, you can have incidents that occur that are reported from a 24-hour petrol station that actually have nothing to do with the 24-hour petrol station. And we've seen that many times where, because it's the only place that's open late at night, it's the petrol station cashier that reports an incident to the police. And that's why it's important that we see evidence of incidents in advance. Interestingly, there are no. We have 1 resident representation now. If we were causing problems, and if we've been causing problems this summer to residents, I am certain that we would have had numerous resident representations against this application. And we have 1 single representation from a lady, and we don't know where she lives or what her concerns are. We've not been able to have any contact with her, and we've not heard from her today. So, and as you'll be advised by Mark, any decision you take today does need to be based on real evidence, and that's what the courts require. And there is no evidence today before you to restrict those hours. And importantly, I'd stress that there is no evidence to support the imposition of a condition that there be a security guard during the hours, whether it's Wednesday to Saturday or any day. We're talking about 52 weeks of the year. Those are not necessarily the days that the bed would be open. And frankly, if there's a problem with the bed nightclub, it is or any other late night venue, it is those late night venues that need to be targeted rather than preventing the petrol station from operating the hours that your own policy indicates they should be able to do so, and which the government guidance says they ought to be able to do so as well. I remind you that on page 61 we offered 2 additional. Sorry, I should say there seems to be some criticism that we didn't include additional conditions, and somehow that we were ignoring the fact that we were now applying for a 24-hour license. Well, the last 2 applications have been for 24 hours, and the sorry, my cat has just now jumped up. The 24 hours. So the operating schedule was designed for a 24-hour license, and even though we only got midnight and then we settled at 2 a.m, we kept those conditions there. So it's already got the conditions that we usually expect to see on a 24-hour license. But we have offered 2 additional conditions, which are on page 61. The first is that signage will be displayed in a prominent position at the point of sale, notifying the customers that any alcohol purchased on the premises must not be consumed on the petrol forecourt or in the immediate vicinity. So that notice would be at the night pay window, so that anybody purchasing would have that pointed out to them. And then the second is about the security guard. We will risk assess on a regular basis the need for security guard presence between the hours of 0200 and 0500, and a record of such risk assessment will be kept in the premises and made available. You can add made available to the police if you wish, and that is proportionate. And if the need does arise, I think it's fair to say that if the need arose for a security guard between any hours, the petrol station would simply shut the alcohol sales. It wouldn't be proportionate. It wouldn't work to have a security guard there, and that would indicate that there are problems. We don't want problems. We don't expect problems, and we don't expect problems to migrate to the premises should this variation be granted. So I once again stress that we are already selling alcohol to 2 a.m. There is ample opportunity for the police or any other responsible authority or the residents to bring evidence before you today that the sale of alcohol up to 2 a.m. at these premises is already causing a problem. Please don't grant the extra hours. You've not heard a shred of evidence from the police or any other party that that is the case. And on that basis, I would submit that there is no evidence to support a refusal of this application or the conditions of the onerous conditions proposed by the police. I would ask you to grant the variation subject to the conditions already on the licence with the 2 additional conditions that we have proposed on page 61. Can I also ask that if you are minded, as I said in the previous hearing, if you are minded to do anything different in terms of conditions, that I be given the opportunity, please, to address you at that point. The case law supports that as well. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Members, are there any other questions at this point in time?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Chair.
Mark, any questions from you?
It's Mark from Legal. No, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. So we will now leave the session and then into a private session as we did earlier on. But I will hand over to Helen to read out the statement before we do so and vote to leave this session.
Thank you, Chairman. Helen Snell, Democratic Services. I'll now read the statement to go into private session and ask members to vote. So, in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following business on the grounds that they would be likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information of the following description. Information in respect of which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings, and that the proceedings, apart from the resolution, shall remain confidential. So could I have a proposer, please?
I'm happy to propose.
Thank you, that's Councillor Lennox Boyd. And could I have a seconder?
I'd be prepared to second that as John Martin.
Thank you, that's Councillor Martin. So a roll call vote, please. Councillor Lennox Boyd?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Luke?
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Martin?
4.
Okay, so we will now retire. I will ask the live stream operator to pause the live stream while members make their decision, and we will then come back to the meeting to announce the decision. So if you could refrain from chatting amongst yourselves for a moment until I just confirm that the live stream is paused. It's Helen Snell, Democratic Services. I can confirm, Chairman and members, that the live stream is again live. So can we vote to go back into public session, please? Can I have a proposer?
Councillor Matt Luke, I shall propose that we go back into session.
Thank you.
And
A seconder?
Councillor Lennox Boyd is happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. And a quick roll call. Councillor Lennox Boyd?
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Luke?
4.
And Councillor Martin?
4.
Thank you. That's agreed.
Okay. Hello everyone and welcome back to the public session. And I shall present you straight over to Mark, our legal representative, oh for goodness sake, to give out our recommendation for today's licensing hearing.
Thank you, Chairman. It's Mark Andrews from Legal here. Can you just confirm that you can hear me, please?
Yes, I can. Can everyone else?
Yeah, I'll
yes,
assume everyone else can.
Yeah.
Okay, so the proposal is as follows, Chairman. So arising from consideration of the report, the evidence, submissions from all parties having regard to the statutory guidance, the Council's policy and the Licensing Act 2003, the application to vary the premises licence under the Licensing Act for Bude service station, Bude, be granted subject to the following conditions. Excuse me. 1. Signage will be displayed in a prominent position at the point of sale, notifying customers that any alcohol purchased at the premises must not be consumed on the petrol forecourt or in the immediate vicinity in order to promote the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective. 2. The licence holder will risk assess on a regular basis the need for a security guard presence between the hours of 0200 and 0500, and a record of such risk assessment will be kept at the premises and made available to the police if requested, in order to promote the prevention of public nuisance and the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objectives. Members felt that the representations made were not supported by sufficient evidence to show that the licensing objectives would be undermined by the granting of the application. Dealing with the various points raised in the representations. 1. The subcommittee noted the representation from the police, but members also noted that the premises were already open for 24 hours and there was no evidence that issues have arisen at the premises whilst it has been operating. Members also noted no representations have been received from any of the other responsible authorities regarding issues with the premises. 2. Members noted the location of the premises and the, excuse me, and the fact that it was near to residential properties. However, members noted that there was no evidence that complaints had been received by any of the responsible authorities from local residents whilst the premises were operating under existing hours. 3. Taking all the information into account, including the representations received, members concluded that there was insufficient evidence to show that granting the variation application would undermine the licensing objectives and therefore felt that it was reasonable and proportionate to grant the application. 4. Members further noted if issues did arise at the premises, then the premises licence could be subject to a review by the other persons or the responsible authorities. That's the proposal, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. And we're all happy with that or not happy with that, as the case may be.
I'd like to propose it, Chair.
I'll second that proposal.
Thank you, members. It's Helen Snell, Democratic Services. So we've got the proposer, Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Luke. A roll call vote, please. Councillor Lennox Boyd?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Luke?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Martin?
4.
Thank you. That's all agreed.
Okay, then that's that one finished with, and we will now proceed with the next street trading subcommittee agenda.
Councillor Luke, it's Helen Snell, Democratic Services.
Yeah.
Still keeping to our Licensing Act agenda.
Yeah.
Item 5, any other business the chairman considers of urgency. I don't think you've had anything. So
no, I missed that one, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So if you could just confirm that you haven't.
No, nothing else, and we can bring the meeting to a close if that's
Thank
okay.
you. Yes, so we declare the meeting closed at 13:54. So we will leave this meeting now and I will ask the live stream to now end. Thank you.